life is weirdly a lot harder than we've been told. And midlife? That's a whole other can of worms that I was completely unprepared for. What about you? But here's the good news. There are so many new skills and mindsets that we can learn to make even the toughest days a little bit better. But if you're like me in your midlife, you just haven't learned them. Welcome to Thrive with Kira, a smart and square podcast for women in midlife that teaches the skills to get more joy and love in your life. Join me weekly as I teach science-based, smarty-farty topics and break them down into bite-sized lessons that you can apply to your life, all while sharing my own shit show life stories that you can learn from. I'll be talking regularly about getting more joy on a daily basis, thriving in midlife, yes, you can, figuring out menopause, healthy dating and relationships, building self-worth, body positivity and neutrality, growth mindset, adult friendships, and also easy mindfulness. So we can stop just surviving and start learning how to thrive. Welcome to Thrive. Well, hello there, sugar pantses. Welcome to Thrive with Kira. I'm Kira. See how that works? I actually am loving saying that right now. That feels so good. How are you guys doing? I'm stopping in for a short and sweet little podcast episode today because I'm actually making it probably a 2 or 3 parter, and I'm bringing in some guest experts because I don't know all the shit, and I'm not going to pretend to know all the shit about something like perimenopause that I barely knew existed more than a year ago and is now a sadly huge part of my life. But I want to talk about that today. And more importantly, I just want to talk a little bit about what's going on for me. So maybe you can recognize if that's also going on for you, and just talk about some of the basics, because I don't think we are talking about this enough. And I just did a bunch of research that actually backs that up. So stick with me. If you don't have perimenopause, if you don't think you do or anything like that, that's okay. These episodes might be great for you in a couple of years. But I want to start this conversation today with a little research, but not as science-y, and just talk about how this is personally like fucking beating me up right now. And I was completely blindsided by it, even though I have a mother as well as an older sister who have gone through this before me. And that seems to be very common, a common thread, a common theme. So let's talk about perimenopause and what it is, what you should be looking for, and then more importantly, what we can do about that. And then I'm actually going to be bringing on at least one, if not 2 experts this week, one to discuss our hormones and one to discuss, she's a perimenopause coach and specialist, more about what's happening to your body, more about what we should expect, because a lot of us are not getting the support that we need in this time. And I do want to mention, as I continue to kind of tweak this into what I know is the best chance for people to get support and change and transformation in the Thrive program. So both of these experts are actually going to be guest experts in the Thrive program. And then more importantly, our hormone specialist, who's actually a holistic clinician, is going to be giving every single member of Thrive an at-home hormone test that's really critically acclaimed. And then she's going to read it for you. This is what she does for a living. She supports women in this kind of testing, and she's going to tell you everything that you need to know from this test that you can then take to your doctor or naturopath or whoever to get the actual support you need. And in my understanding and research, this is kind of rare. Many women are going and asking for hormone tests, but if it's a regular physician, they may not know how to read it correctly. They may not even know what to be looking for. If it is not specifically a gynecologist or maybe an obstetrician or somebody who is particularly very, very knowledgeable about these tests, how to read them, and what it means, because not every doctor actually does that or knows that. She's also going to be able to make suggestions personally for you about some things you should be thinking about, maybe some supplementation. So you are actually getting real knowledge information that is helpful and can help you get the support and therapy that you need while you're in this time that can last up to 12 years. 12 years. So I added to the program. It's actually going to be free. I am taking that out of what I make in the program because I think it's so fucking important. And in fact, I'm going to be doing it too. She's going to be doing it's an at-home hormone test, and they test 5 times a day because our hormones are different throughout the day. And then we send it in, and she's going to individually read each one so you feel empowered and knowledgeable to take this shit on. Because one of the comments I saw is that women of a certain generation just assume that suffering is part of being a woman, and unfortunately, our lot in life. But now, patients are saying, this is nonsense, and you're going to have to do better for us. And I'm part of that ballpark. I can't believe, I don't mean to be so victim-y that I'm like, I'm the only person going through this. Not at all, but I do take my 16 years of doing this work as well as 10 plus years on this podcast as a moment to say, this is something is happening to me. And actually the research is that 75 million women as we speak are in perimenopause, menopause, or postmenopause right now in the US. 75 million women. So this is just not me. And not everybody has the same severity of symptoms, but a lot of people do. And if you don't know what's happening, you can be confused. You might go to your doctor. They may not know what's happening. There's actually a lot of misdiagnosis at this time in age. And I love this quote also from a woman named Catherine Clancy. And I believe this is from a Time article that I will put in the show notes. And she wrote an entire book about menstrual cycles, but even she was surprised by some of the premenopausal symptoms that she started to experience by age of 44. And she said, a lot of things that have to do with my uterus, ovaries, and breasts, I have been massively underprepared for as a PhD level expert in this field. And she's a professor at University of Illinois. And she said, that should tell you how even more underprepared most people are. So if she's actually a PhD level expert in this field about menstrual cycles, and she was even shocked by some of the symptoms that she was getting, that tells us a lot. Now, before we go on, I just want to tell you, because I like to go back to basics here, what exactly perimenopause is. So all it's defined as is a time period during which your body makes the transition to menopause. And perimenopause is marked by erratic fluctuations in estrogen and can last up to 10 years. It is simple math to figure out that a woman can begin experiencing perimenopause symptoms in her mid-30s. That happens a lot. Also, I also hear this happening about people who have fibroids or cysts on their ovaries. So they may get a partial hysterectomy or a hysterectomy, which puts you immediately in menopause. And a lot of them can go kind of immediately whoop into that situation. And it's a lot more shocking in your body than you think it's going to be. But now that we know a little bit about what perimenopause is, it's just basically estrogen is leaving your body on some level. I want to just personally say, I feel betrayed. I feel betrayed by women, by everybody, that we are going through this. And I'm just starting to see us talk about this. And here is what I will say. I had a friend who's probably about 8 or 9 years older than me, and she was going through this about 6 years ago, and she was starting to comment on things. And because I did not know much about it and it wasn't happening to me, I'm like, oh, yeah, God, that sounds like that sucks, and moved on. And we do that a lot when we haven't gone through something. And I think that's true about perimenopause. But I will tell you, what is this fresh hell? Like, seriously, what is this fresh hell? Now, maybe you're not there yet, but here are some of the normal and then absolutely wacky symptoms that can come with perimenopause. And don't be surprised that you weren't told perimenopause. And that's because more than 90% of postmenopausal women were never taught about menopause at school, and over 60% only started looking for information about it once their symptoms have started. Okay, so that's true. So 90% of postmenopausal women were never taught anything, and only even 60%, so 40% of women don't even know what the fuck is happening to their body, are actually starting to look for information. And I do want to mention, as this started happening and I started following experts on Instagram and TikTok, because those are my two places, I cannot believe how many women are struggling with this and have no idea this is what it is. And there is one expert I follow on TikTok, and people are constantly tagging her in videos of these women, these moms sometimes, or just women in their 40s, in their car, in the parking lot at Target, and just sobbing and don't know why and think that they're losing their shit. And it's perimenopause. I also can't believe that I've just been occasionally throwing up a funny meme or video if I see it. And the amount of women who I know, some of you listening to this podcast, are commenting, oh my God, this is happening to me. Oh my God, I had no idea. Oh my God, I tried talking to my doctor about it and they were super unhelpful. I even had a conversation with my sister in the last week about how she has a really good female doctor, but she's going to her with real problems. And her doctor's kind of like, well, why don't we just wait on this? And we're talking about mental health stuff. We're talking about depression. And it doesn't take my ADHD rabbit hole brain to go that deep to realize how little we understand about the female body, how little research has been done about the female body. And in fact, it's mostly just in the last 20 years. And how many studies are old, not that helpful, are being touted as the only information that we have about perimenopause and menopause. So I read this other quote that I want to share with you from that Time article, and they're talking about a woman. Her name is Dr. Sharon Malone. She is the chief medical advisor to Alloy, and she says the medical system's problems with menopause go back to 2002. That's when a major study was published linking hormone therapy, which can ease menopause symptoms by boosting levels of hormones that have dropped off, but that it was linked to risks of breast cancer and other serious conditions. And so after that, hormone therapy use plummeted in the US. But Dr. Sharon Malone says there is a crucial caveat to that data. The study participants' average age was 63, older than a typical patient receiving hormone therapy for menopause. And then later analysis and statements from researchers involved in the study clarified that the risk of breast cancer may have been overstated, particularly for younger people. And then in 2022, the North American Menopause Society said hormone therapy has more benefits than risks for women younger than 60 and within 10 years of menopause. And I know I personally read recently a new research document that women who have done hormone therapy, and by the way, there are lots of different hormone therapies now, and there's different doses, there's different understandings. So specifically, that study from 2002 was talking about one kind of hormone replacement therapy, and now there are all kinds of hormone replacement therapy. And what Dr. Sherry Malone goes on to say is that we are now looking at a generation of doctors that have really not had formal or informal training on how to treat menopause. Women don't know what to expect, and doctors really don't know what to do. And she goes on to say physicians who don't specialize in obstetrics and gynecology likely know even less, because women's health is often wrongly considered separate from the rest of medicine. I'm side-eyeing that right now. And she often sees patients who have been misdiagnosed with other conditions, including ADHD, because their primary care doctor didn't realize the symptoms, like brain fog, can be linked to perimenopause and menopause. Another reason that doctors are uninformed is that productive science research looks at people at the peak of their childbearing years. Let's talk about that shock that the most research has been done about women being able to have babies. Okay. Side-eyeing that too. So that's when I guess our greatest worth is, but not when we're not able to have babies. No need to study those people. Nope. That's all sarcasm, if you didn't catch it. And she said there's a clear need for more studies and more fundings for studies on people who fall outside those main reproductive years. And there was a bill introduced, I believe in 2022, calling for 100 million in menopause research, but it hasn't moved forward. And then I finally want to say new updated research shows that women 60 years of age and younger, hormone replacement therapy significantly reduces all cause of mortality and cardiovascular disease. So they're actually saying if you're under the age of 60 and start doing hormone replacement therapy, not only can it ease the symptoms of perimenopause, which I'm going to go over in just a second, but it can actually also have a long impact on your health in the later years. I will put a link to that study. It's from the National Library of Medicine. So the very thing that they told women not to do 20 years ago, they're now realizing is completely wrong. So there's that. Let's get into some of these symptoms so you can see if this is maybe something that you're starting to notice. Not everything comes on severe. And by the way, they say the average age for kind of the height of perimenopause is 51, which is exactly what I am. Now, that's not a guarantee. It can start for some people in their 30s. It can start for some later and go into their 60s. I know. What is this shit? But let's talk about some of the regular, but also weird ass perimenopause symptoms that I have basically backed up online that it's not just me. So the first one is just irregular period, right? You might start it might be getting a little bit longer in between periods when you were always right on in the past. You might be bleeding a lot more heavily or more lightly. You're just going to see a change in your period because that's your hormones are changing in your body. Next, brain fog. That is a big one. And it's like you can't find your words. I recorded a podcast episode like 2 weeks ago. And I think at the very end of it, I actually put it because I have no shame anymore, I guess. But we did the intro to Romcom Rescue and I forgot the name of our podcast that I named. So I'm like, hey, everybody, welcome to... I could not fucking remember the name of my own podcast that I have now been doing for months. I edit it every week. I post it every week. It is a major part of my life and business. Totally forgot the name. Forget the name of Danny sometimes. Like I'll call him Mom. I mean, I the other day was like, and he goes, Danny? I'm like, yes. It's so weird. And you also just short-term memory. So You'll walk into a room. You have no idea why you were there. I will start a sentence and not remember what I was talking about by the end of it. And you might just straight up forget what you're doing. How crazy is that? That's why people are confusing it with ADHD. And here's the unfortunate, and I haven't dug into this deeply because it's personally triggering for me, that I guess ADHD for women in menopause and perimenopause is much harder because it really triggers our ADHD and kind of kicks it up. So for years, they said that adult ADHD kind of as you age, the symptoms will lessen. Well, that's actually true of men, but not for women. And women will actually have an influx in ADHD symptoms as they're going through perimenopause and menopause. Did not know this. Not happy about it. Don't know a ton about it. But I encourage that if you are somebody with ADHD and you're in perimenopause and you're just being really fucking hard on yourself or you don't know what's going on, to do a little Google. Next, maybe this doesn't matter to you. Didn't think it would matter to me as much as it did, but my friend Deb, I'm just going to tell, I think she sometimes listens to this. She's the one who had perimenopause, and I was like, oh, that sounds tough, and then just kind of moved on. But she would joke all the time that her hoo-ha, her vajayjay, the down there, the bits, are really dry. And we would joke that they were dry and dusty. And lo and fucking behold, this started when I started noticing that when I put my tampon in, and yes, I know that this is a little, why can't we fucking talk about this? Actually, you know what? Why can't we talk about this? This is what all of us do virtually every fucking month. So why are we not talking about it? I'm not going to apologize for talking about my body on my own fucking podcast. So when I was getting my period every month, and I am not a heavy bleeder. I never have been, but even just regular tampons hurt when I put them in, and it felt dry and like they were rubbing. And I was like, what the fuck? And then the next time that Danny and I were having sex, I was like, whoa, 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 whoa. What is happening here? What is happening here? And no amount of lube was making that okay at all. And that's super normal. And in fact, I know people, there's now supplements that can help that, but it was super surprising. And what we don't talk about is that perimenopause affects not only our lives, but the lives of the people who love us. I am much more emotional. I cannot seem to control my emotions in a way that I used to be able to. That is probably the biggest side effect or symptom that is sucking for me, because I'm spending a lot of time apologizing in my relationship for things that I'm saying that I'm not meaning, because I just can't seem to control my emotions in the way that I used to. So Danny and I have actually had to have conversations about this. Like, you don't know a ton about this because I don't know a ton about this, but here's what's going on in my body. Here's what's happening from that. If you can give me a little love and compassion and empathy about that. And then if it becomes too much on a daily basis, let's discuss it. And I might need to, figure some things out, go on a different medication or something else, because I don't want shit taking down my relationship. That's one of the only good things in my life right now. So I want to do that. And here's the deal. Danny he's pretty fucking phenomenal anyway. But he's been really kind and thoughtful and understanding of these body changes, because he just didn't know what was going on. He didn't understand. And, we're working on not taking things so seriously on both of our parts, because we can tend to do that, and just not take things so personally. So occasionally I'll say something. And luckily, because of my background, because of my self-awareness level that I have at this point, I can usually within a very short time, most likely even seconds, go, wait a second, that came out wrong. Let me say it this way. Or, you know what? I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said that. Let me take and sidestep and say, this is what I meant to say in a kinder way. And I am having to do that in a way that I haven't had to in years, because we were good. We got our talking down. Besides the stress of running a business and living a fucking life in this country and being tired and burned out and getting older, Like, we're great, but this is really disturbing the force. It's really disturbing things. And I think that that's why we have to talk about it, because since a lot of you who are listening to this right now still are single, getting into a relationship, we're going to probably be more emotional. We're probably going to take things a little more personally. And when we know that, we can watch for it. We can talk to somebody about it. We can make sure from our therapist or our coach or our really good friends, I'm doing right by me or by the person I'm dating. And I'm not just like losing this to a bunch of emotions I can't control, like I'm in midlife puberty. Next, weight gain. Now, I already have a complicated relationship with my body. Many of us do. I think that's just unfortunately the consequence of a lot of how we grew up. However, I will say I am pissed as fuck that I used to be able to kind of go, okay, if I start to do this and I change some things this way in my diet and I get a little bit more movement, I'll feel better. Mostly feel better, because that's my big goal. Fuck, this weight may not go anywhere at this point. I just want to feel good and do the shit I want to do. Like, that's where we're at. So not only was I not feeling good, there was a ton of inflammation. I was like super achy all the time, but I would have this weight gain and I would do these things that I always did and nothing worked. None of it. In fact, I haven't changed anything. And I'm just right now slowly and surely gaining weight, and I'm having to figure out what to do about it. I will say personally, I have found not one, but two different supplements you can buy right on Amazon that were recommended to me by people that I trust. And one of them being our holistic clinician. She recommended a DIM supplement for me. And I think they help. My hot flashes are not what they used to be. I very rarely have night sweats. I very rarely wake up just soaked in the middle of the night, which is absolutely something that was happening and is another symptom, which let's just talk about it. Hot flashes. I think I didn't know what they were for a long time. And I just kind of remember being a Midwesterner, like these stoic women that came before me. So whether they be my great aunts or my older cousins, being in the kitchen cooking for the holidays and all of a sudden just open up the window because they're having a hot flash. And that was the huge gesture was, oh, I just need to open up this window for a second because I'm having a hot flash. And I'm like, okay. Right? Like not understanding oh, yeah, those can really feel awful. And all of a sudden I'm like, oh my God, what is happening? Danny for Christmas bought me a little fan and you put it around your neck and you press the little button. There's 5 levels and it blows up on your face and it helps. It really does. And sometimes just because it's been really fucking hot here and our air is not even completely cutting it because of humidity and shit, I'll throw that on. I'll be like, yes, that feels great. And then also night sweats. That's a thing where we wake up and we're just soaked. And I'm lucky my mom, which I'm really looking forward to if this happens to me, would wake up and she'd have to take off her sheets in the middle of the night. They were that soaked, and change her sheets in the middle of the night, which I think we both know is a huge inconvenience if you have to wake up and work the next day. I mean, this is real shit. And if you're sharing a bed, you're also then disturbing your partner and everybody involved. And it's a thing. It's an absolute shitty thing. Next, unexplained anxiety. Guys, I am very vocal about being low-grade depressed, sometimes more than that, chronically for a very long time, right? I'm still digging into it. I mentioned recently, and a couple of you guys reached out to me, that low-dose ketamine for me has been a game changer. I have also been on antidepressants on and off during my life. I'm on right now due to perimenopause because I literally said to Danny, do you think I need to go back on antidepressants? And he said, yes. And that's what I like about our relationship. We were really kind about it. I'm like, you know me, you see me the day to day in a way that I don't see myself. which is the gift and curse of relationships. And he's like, I think you should absolutely go back on your antidepressant. And I'm like, okay. But I did not expect anxiety. And I'm going to cry as I say this because perimenopause, but I just want to apologize to anybody who has panic attacks or anxiety attacks because I don't think I understood the severity. And I had my first panic attack recently, and I 100% think it is from perimenopause, that it starts changing the hormones and something that my body had never done before. I had a reasonably long-lasting panic attack, and that was one of the worst and most awful things that has ever happened in my life. And luckily, Danny was here. He held my hand. I know enough about a few things that I was able to kind of breathe. I meditated. I listened to binaural beats. But I understand why people end up at the hospital thinking they're dying. I understand why this can be debilitating. And I just want to apologize to anybody who is dealing with this on a regular basis, because I've had stress, I've worried, all of the kind of normal, I think even some level Gen X, worry warts that we are and we're kind of raised to be because we weren't given any fucking coping skills. But I did not see this anxiety piece coming. And I can feel it like well up inside of me occasionally. And I just start breathing and I can kind of get myself out of it. I'm not saying anything good or bad about that. I don't know you. This has been what's working for me. I do not have severe anxiety. However, holy shit, I'm so sorry. And if you're dealing with that, I hope and pray that you are getting not only some physical support, but some emotional and mental support, because that is really hard to live with. And part of this fucking conversation of this whole series is what makes a life? And in fact, I'm just going to sidetrack here for a second, because last night I was having a really good conversation on my Instagram DMs with somebody who follows me, and we talk occasionally. And we were just talking about what makes a good life and the soft life. I had posted something that's like, I am here for the soft life at this point. I'm too old to work so hard. And I laughed, and I agree. And we were just talking about that. And this is what I ended up writing and posting. Getting older, I realized there is no perfect job, no perfect person, no perfect place, no perfect situation or relationship. The perfect life does not exist. However, a life full of intentional community, meaning friends that we're choosing to be there, the courage to keep trying new things, because that's hard, giving back to those in need, because we do have knowledge to help those, and then creating lots of tiny moments of joy every day can create a really beautiful and fulfilling life. That's what I'm aiming for in my 50s. And that's what I believe to be true. And actually, positive psychology even backs that up. That happiness isn't a destination, but it's literally being able to be present enough, being able to have good, supportive people around you, feeling that you have meaning and purpose in giving back to this world. Because if we don't feel like that, that can feel very depressing. As well as doing some of these daily activities that they have proven make us happier. And if you are a grumpy Gus over there or a Debbie Downer, I love that fucking skit on Saturday Night Live. Rachel Dratch, shout out. I get it. However, because part of me, and I think part of my Gen X side of deep sarcasm and mild side eye at the rest of the fucking world right now, also feels that way. But I think it's fucked up shit that we now have the science and research that shows us how to be happier, and most of us don't know about it and aren't doing it. It's part of the reason I'm shifting this podcast. And I've always been talking about positive psychology, but I'm just putting it out there at a bigger level and a more intimate level of sharing my own stories, how these things are affecting me, what I'm finding working for me, and what I'm finding harder. It all matters. And if we are not happy, if we don't feel good, if we don't have the community that we want, life feels hard, rough, scary, lonely. We shouldn't have Sunday scaries. That shouldn't be a thing. We shouldn't dislike our lives so much that we have anxiety on our day off about the week ahead. What are we doing? We hope that buying shit will make us happy. Nope. I think that's also a little bit of a side effect of being the age that I am, because I really grew up in the era of getting stuff, more and more stuff, whether that be Atari or technology, and everything needed to be upgraded in every couple of years. And now, Danny and I were just talking the other day, I feel like everything I own is good for about 2 years, maybe 3, and that's it. I don't love that life. I don't love that for us at all. But there are things that we can do so we don't have to feel as shitty. And if there is any way that I can help you get there, I will. By the way, I have made the process, because I'm still figuring this out. I've never done a program like this before. I have just made it that if you're interested in Thrive at all, to jump on a phone call with me this week. I have created, I think, 3 days where a majority of the day I'm available for a 45-minute call. It's not even like 15 minutes. No, we're going to like talk about what's going on with you. Talk about if I can help and if this program can help, because you are fucking worth spending time, energy, money, and effort on a better life. You are worth that. And I find that one of the worst parts of low self-worth is us feeling like we are not worth working on changing, not actually reaching out for the help or the support to change things that don't feel good in our lives. We kind of fucking think we just have to be here. We do. And we have no idea how to feel good. And that's when we just get into the happiness destination mode, which means then we're just trying to, well, I'm going to get to my perfect body, or I'm going to then deep dive into looking for my perfect job, or I'm going to move across the country or to another country because surely this next location will be exactly what I was looking for. And it never is, because 90% of happiness is from the internal part of us. 90%. So we're all searching for joy in shit that is proven now to not give us joy. Let's get back to some of the symptoms. All right. This is an interesting one, but this has happened to me. Something called pharmacation. And it feels like you have bugs crawling on you, but you don't. That's a real thing. And as we go into perimenopause, this is a weird side effect that a lot of women talk about having. They also talk about kind of these phantom senses where all of a sudden you'll start smelling something that's absolutely not there, or hear something that's absolutely not there. And they also talk about that food that you really like just sometimes can taste different. And maybe just for one bite or two. But food just tastes different and sometimes can taste off when it's not. Also, another weird one, trouble swallowing for no reason. I find now, I used to get up and one of the first things I did was take my morning supplements. It's part of my day. It's part of my process. I do it before I eat. I do it before I do anything. And I have now had to make sure I drink some water first and sit up properly and everything, or I will choke it up. I'm like, what can I not swallow anymore? Jeez Louise. Next, sleep disturbances. You sometimes have to get up and pee more because there's like a complicated issue with your bladder as we get older and in perimenopause. You might also just wake up in the middle of the night and have a hard time getting back to sleep. These are all totally normal. Headaches. So I'm not much of a headache person. I'm just kind of a person that occasionally from allergies, I wake up with a headache and it's kind of gone by the end of the day. And if I, take some sinus stuff, but I've actually had some pretty severe headaches that would almost be described as migraines over the last year or two. Out of nowhere, out of absolutely nowhere. Nothing's changed. I'm not doing anything different. I literally just wake up with a headache. And it's not seasonal allergies because it'll be in the winter. So I'm like, what the fuck is going on? And then the last one I'm just going to talk about, itchy inner ears. That's a real thing where you now feel like your inner ear, so not the outside, but the inner ear is like itching and like you need to scratch it. This is a weird symptom of perimenopause. So, what about you? Any of those coming up for you? Anybody today go, oh gosh, I might be starting to experience perimenopause symptoms and I had no idea. They actively can start mid 40s and that's totally normal, just slowly but surely. So, what did you learn? Anybody going through this and struggling like I am, not sure what to do, not sure where to go, not sure anything? That's part of the reason I've created Thrive so we can get through this together. And in fact, I am going through almost everything that I am asking my people to go through. I'm going to get hormone testing myself and have it read. I'm going to be on the perimenopause call so I can learn more things. And in fact, there's a whole physical portion, and it's not about shaming your weight, and it's not about like, oh no, you just need to lose weight and get on a diet. No, it's about how to eat, move, stretch, and treat your body now that it's in a different phase. Because so many of us are acting like we would do something in our 20s or even younger, and that shit isn't working anymore. And the worst part is we think we're crazy, we think we're going through something alone, and we're not. 75 million women in the US alone are dealing with some level of perimenopause or postmenopause right now. So why are we staying quiet about this? Maybe your symptoms aren't brutal, and I am excited about that for you. I know that I am crying 4 to 5 times a day now. A lot of them happy. A lot of them, like, I watch a video on Instagram or TikTok and just start crying because I'm like, that's so nice. And probably 4 to 5 times a day is low. This comes from somebody who used to only cry when something would happen that would make me cry. Not anymore. But I will say that it's kind of nice to feel things, even when the tough stuff comes along with it. You don't have to do any of this alone. This is a weird stage. I am obsessed with talking about this right now, not only because I'm in it, but because I know that I even have a lot of the knowledge and tools on how to do some of this stuff a little bit better or more successfully with better results so I don't take down myself and my relationships and my friendships in my life. But you may not. And there's no shame in that game, my friend. You just never learned it. But I'm teaching it, and we're doing it with 2 beautiful fucking retreats. There is nothing I want more right now after being told by a doctor earlier this year to hold off on traveling. So I had to cancel a retreat and getting that clearance this spring. There's nothing I want more in life than to sit in a room with 14 women and talk about life, happiness, love, all of it, and how to do it better. And not only just talk about it, but actually practice it and apply. Because I'm going to say this once and I'm going to say this a million times. Even if you know it, if you are not applying it, then you do not have that knowledge. So many people look at some of my shit. They're like, well, I just read that book on self-compassion recently. And I know about boundaries because I listened to this podcast. Okay, that's amazing. That's the first step. Are you applying it? Are you doing those things? We can all know about things. And part of us, when we don't like to feel stuff, I'm looking at you, my little overthinkers, that we think we can think our thing through, think all of our problems through, versus have to feel them, which is what actually gets us through. It's both. But we just assume because I listened to this or I took this course and now I know about it, that we know it. But you don't, because you haven't learned how to apply it. And you haven't learned how to practice it so it actually becomes a habit, or more importantly, a ritual. That's what this program is. You already know probably half the shit that I'm going to be talking about. We're actually going to be looking at how to apply it and get it to stick. I'm not reinventing the wheel over here. I'm not teaching a bunch of things that you've never heard of, especially in the world of self-help. And if you are even the tiniest bit of self-help interested, you have probably heard so many of the topics that I talk about. That's beautiful. I fucking love that we live in a world that understands self-compassion, that understands boundaries, that understands vulnerability. I love that we live in that world. But I'm not so happy that we now have all this knowledge and then are just walking around feeling like shit because none of us know how to apply it to our life. We were raised in a school system, and this is the way that they thought learning worked for so long, right? I just talked about this recently on Why We Change or Don't, where you would read and you were right, and then we just assumed you knew it. When it comes to self-help, and more importantly, when it comes to life and relationship skills and mindset, you have to practice them. You have to deeply apply them to your life for it to actually make an impact in your life. That's what I'm doing. That's why I've got all of these other cool experts coming in also to help you do that. All right, guys. Who felt this? Who heard this? Who is like, holy shit, yes, that's me. That's happening to me. Let me know. Okay, I have a new fancy email, Kira@thrivewithkira.com. You can email me. I want to hear which of these symptoms are sticking out to you. Where are you struggling with it? And if you're feeling this at all, let's jump on the phone this week. We could just talk. Don't you want to talk to me for 45 minutes? I mean, please do so if you are thinking about this program, but let's dig in. I mean, I promise you, after 45 minutes, if you allow me to, I will probably point out 3 to 5 things of places where you could be making changes right now. And there are blind spots that you never even saw, because that's my gift and that's my experience and that's what I do. All right, guys, that's it for today. And right now, as I start this podcast for me, midlife and perimenopause, our country right now and the politics, as well as just life, we're at a perfect storm. Get through this with me. If you liked this, if somebody just sent you here, please subscribe. I don't always put things out weekly. Sometimes I put things out 3 times a week. Sometimes I'll have a week and a half to 2 weeks in between. So subscribe so you know exactly when things go live. Finally, if you really love it, please leave a review. Whether it's just some stars on Apple or Spotify, or really writing down what you are learning and loving about this podcast. I read every single one. They fucking make my day. You are the wind beneath my wings. And it helps get it out there. Because honestly, as much as I can say this, for as much feedback I get about this podcast, which is a lot, and most of it all very positive, even if you never share this with another person, by you writing an anonymous review, that lets other people know this might be something that they want to check out. All right, guys. I'm actually probably going to be back in a few days with one of my guests to talk about perimenopause a little more deeply so we can learn what to do and then how to apply. And then I don't think I can say this again. Please go check out thrivewithkira.com. All payment plans are basically doable. Let's just do this together. I already have a couple stellar, amazing women in the program. I can't wait to just keep adding to it. I'll see you soon. And until then, meet joy halfway.